When the earth gives way. A story of faith in the siege of Jerusalem. Based on Tehillim, Psalms, 46. The year was 701 BC. The sun beat down upon Jerusalem, baking the stone walls and turning the dust of the streets into a choking haze. Within the city, a palpable fear hung heavy in the air, thicker than the dust. Sennacherib, king of Assyria, the scourge of the ancient world, had turned his hungry eyes towards Yehuda. His armies, a seemingly endless horde of bronze and iron, had swept through the countryside, leaving behind a trail of devastation and despair. Lachish had fallen, its inhabitants slaughtered or dragged into slavery, a grim warning to any who dared resist the might of Assyria. Elisha, a stonemason by trade, felt the fear just as keenly as any other citizen of Jerusalem. He was a man of simple faith, his life governed by the rhythms of the Torah and an unwavering belief in Yahweh, the God of Israel. He had a wife, Sarah, and 2 young children, Micah and Deborah, their faces etched with worry. He looked at their hopeful faces. They needed his strength and faith to see them through this ordeal. Elisha had seen the refugees streaming into the city, their faces gaunt and their eyes wide with terror, recounting tales of Assyrian brutality. He had heard the whispers in the marketplace, the hushed conversations about Hezekiah, the king of Yehuda, and his desperate attempts to fortify the city and seek help from Egypt. But Elisha placed his ultimate trust in Yahweh. One sweltering evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and blood red, Elisha gathered his family in their small courtyard. He opened the scroll containing the Psalms, his calloused fingers tracing the ancient Hebrew script. "We must find solace and strength in the words of David," he said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his heart. He turned to Psalm 46. "Yahweh is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble," he read, the words resonating with a power that belied the fear that gnawed at him. "Therefore we will not fear, though the earth gives way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea." As he continued to read, the words of the psalm seemed to fill the courtyard, pushing back the encroaching darkness and the despair that threatened to engulf them. Sarah held their children close, her eyes fixed on Elisha, drawing strength from his unwavering faith. The siege began soon after. The Assyrian army, a vast and terrifying force, surrounded Jerusalem, cutting off all access to the outside world. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Food became scarce, and the whispers of fear grew louder, turning into cries of desperation. Elisha, along with the other men of Jerusalem, was conscripted to help defend the city walls. He spent his days hauling stones, reinforcing the fortifications, and manning the ramparts, his heart pounding with dread each time the Assyrian siege engines launched their deadly projectiles. One day, as Elisha was repairing a section of the wall, a massive stone came crashing down nearby, sending splinters of rock flying in all directions. He felt a sharp pain in his leg and collapsed to the ground. "Yahweh, have mercy," he cried out. His comrades rushed to his aid, dragging him away from the crumbling wall. His leg was badly injured, and he knew he would be unable to fight. As he lay in his bed, his leg throbbing with pain, despair threatened to overwhelm him. He felt useless, a burden to his family and his city. He could no longer contribute to the defense of Jerusalem, and he feared for the fate of his loved ones. Sarah tended to his wound with herbs and water. She reminded him of the psalm he had read to them, of Yahweh's promise of refuge and strength. "Do not lose faith, Elisha," she said, her voice filled with unwavering conviction. "Yahweh is with us. He will not abandon us." Elisha closed his eyes, his mind racing. He thought of the stories he had heard since childhood, of Moses parting the Red Sea, of Joshua conquering Jericho, of David slaying Goliath. All these victories were won not through military might, but through faith in Yahweh. As the days turned into nights, and nights into days, Elisha spent his time in prayer, meditating on the Psalms and seeking solace in the Word of God. He remembered the words, "Be still, and know that I am Yahweh. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." One morning, Elisha awoke with a strange sense of peace. The fear that had haunted him for so long had lifted, replaced by a profound sense of trust in Yahweh's plan. News began to spread through Jerusalem that something miraculous had occurred. A plague had broken out in the Assyrian camp. Soldiers were dying in droves, their bodies covered in boils and sores. The Assyrian army, once so confident and invincible, was now gripped by terror and disarray. Sennacherib, seeing his army decimated by disease, made the decision to lift the siege and retreat back to Assyria. Jerusalem was saved. When Elisha heard the news, he wept tears of joy and relief. He knew that it was Yahweh who had delivered them from the hands of the Assyrians. He gathered his family in the courtyard, his heart overflowing with gratitude. He opened the scroll to Psalm 46 once more, reading the words with a newfound understanding and appreciation. Come, see the works of Yahweh, who has caused desolations in the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth, he breaks the bow and shatters the spear, he burns the chariots with fire. The siege of Jerusalem was over, but the memory of the ordeal would remain with Elisha and his family forever. They had witnessed the power of Yahweh, his unwavering faithfulness, and his ability to deliver his people from the most dire of circumstances. Elisha recovered from his injury and returned to his work as a stonemason. He lived a long and full life, raising his children and grandchildren in the fear and love of Yahweh. He never forgot the lessons he had learned during the siege of Jerusalem. He always reminded them that true refuge and strength come not from military might or human ingenuity, but from unwavering faith in Yahweh. Years later, as an old man, Elisha would sit in his courtyard, surrounded by his family, and recount the story of the siege of Jerusalem. He would tell them how Yahweh had protected them, how he had turned the hearts of their enemies, and how he had ultimately delivered them from destruction. Remember, he would say, his voice raspy but firm, Yahweh Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. And as the sun set over Jerusalem, casting long shadows across the ancient city, his family would listen, their hearts filled with awe and gratitude, knowing that they were part of a story that was bigger than themselves, a story of faith, resilience, and the unwavering love of Yahweh. The story was told for generations to come, a testament to the power of faith in the face of overwhelming odds, a living embodiment of the words of Psalm 46.